Many thanks to PPA for sponsoring this week's video. While wide-angle lenses are often synonymous with landscape photography, in all honesty, they're rather limiting in what you can do with them. You can either A, capture expansive sweeping vistas, or you can exaggerate elements in your foreground by photographing close. But outside of that, you're honestly sort of stuck. This, on the other hand, right here, offers extreme versatility. Its ability to compress elements in a scene not only enhances depth and scale, but also creates visually compelling compositions. You can isolate distant subjects, you can capture, like intricate details of mountains, forests, or waterfalls. And additionally, it allows for selective framing, eliminating distractions and focusing attention on key elements of your scene, while at the same time being much more forgiving and not nearly as condition dependent as a wide-angle lens is. So whether you're capturing those sweeping vistas or intimate landscapes, the telephoto lens, it adds versatility to your toolkit. It enables you to capture the grandeur and subtleties of nature with really pinpoint precision. So if you already own a long lens, or maybe you're just thinking about purchasing one, in this video I'll share with you how you can improve your photography fast by maximizing the versatility and forgiveness of this all-important lens. So to jump right into it, the most, common quality of a wide-angle lens, of a telephoto lens, is its ability to isolate and compress things. And I've got a couple amazing examples of this to really see it in real life. So this is an example from my recent trip to the Dolomites. This was captured with a much wider focal length, and as you can see, it captured this entire mountain. And you can actually see this person right here walking to this point right here. But as you can see, you can barely even make out that there is a person there. Now, putting on a much longer focal length, I was able to capture this photo right here. And as I toggle them back and forth, you can see the isolation. You know, this person is much more prominent in the frame. It isolates it to this area here, which in all honesty is just this tiny little area here. So that's the isolation at work. And in that compression illusion, it's obviously not bringing the mountain closer, but it just creates an illusion that it actually is. This mountain here looks extremely far away from where this person is standing, but now it looks like they can almost just reach out and touch it. So that's an amazing example of that isolation and compression in real life terms, and that you can easily see with your naked eye. Another great example from Boulder Beach in Acadia, wide angle lens, telephoto lens, just picking out these two people on top of this cliff in the background. But as I toggle them back and forth, you can see how you can just not only isolate certain features, but it also just brings everything closer, and it makes them for a much more dramatic and more impactful photograph. And that technique, or just isolation and compression of a telephoto lens, is one of the things that I love absolutely about it, or most about it, I should say. And when you become very comfortable with that, you start to notice scenes, notice things happening in the landscape that you can increase its attractiveness, or increase how dramatic things are when you can utilize that technique to help improve your photographs. Here's a good example from Yosemite, a wider focal length of this beautiful waterfall, telephoto lens zooming in, just bringing the trees and the waterfall much closer to one another. And as I toggle these back and forth, you can see what a dramatic difference that has made. I have one final example from Colorado, wider shot, telephoto, wider shot, telephoto, brings everything much, much tighter. Now, one of my other most favorite techniques about a telephoto lens, it has to do with the isolation aspect of it, but it's the fact that you can exaggerate light and exaggerate atmosphere. So maybe there's not a lot of incredible beauty happening in your scene, but if you have like little light puddles dancing around your scene, putting on a longer focal length and zooming in and isolating those can really make for dramatic photographs. Here's another image from my recent trip to the Dolomites. There was really, I wish I had a wide angle photograph of this area, because there was not a cloud in the sky. The mountains were super dramatic, but it was just kind of felt a little bland. But for about 1 minute, maybe 30 seconds, this beautiful light just raced across this valley floor and lit up these beautiful fall trees. And I was able to capture it with a longer focal length by just isolating that light happening. Another good example, this is just off of a mountain in North Carolina, little bit of light rays dancing across the landscape. Using this longer focal length to zoom in and isolate that light to really exaggerate it makes for a very compelling photograph. Now, on the other side of that is the atmosphere, looking for just little interesting atmosphere happening in your scene. This is in Moab from quite a few years ago, this tiny little cliff face just peeking out from these clouds. This was the only area this was happening in, but just zooming all the way in and capturing this, I think created a very exciting photograph. This right here, this is kind of where you get those scenarios where you get interesting atmosphere and interesting light happening at the same time. And that to me is like the pinnacle of it all. It doesn't get much better than that. But using that longer focal length gives you the ability to isolate that interesting light, to isolate that interesting atmosphere. And once again, just when you have both interesting light and interesting atmosphere, a great scenario to put on a telephoto lens to look for that. So whenever I'm on location and I'm using a telephoto lens, or I shouldn't say that, when I'm on location and I see things in the scene that are starting to unfold, whether that's something in the distance that has something even further beyond that, that's kind of a good, I guess, use case to possibly use the compressing illusion that a long lens provides. You can isolate those kind of things. And I'm also always looking for interesting light or interesting atmosphere. Once again, that's kind of a telltale sign to grab that longer lens out of your bag, put it on your camera and zoom in and isolate where that magic is happening. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video how a telephoto lens is very forgiving. It's also very versatile. So what I mean by forgiving is that it's not nearly as condition dependent as a wide angle lens is. Now, what I mean by that is a wide angle lens, for instance, right here, you don't always get these beautiful cotton candy kind of skies right here. This doesn't happen all the time. So when you're using a wider focal length, a lot of times because your focal or your field of view, I should say, is so wide, so more than likely you're going to pick up the sky. And if the sky's not cooperating, you're going to be left with a huge portion of your photograph that's not very exciting. But with a longer focal length, you can actually zoom in and remove the sky from your scene. And that's what I mean by a very forgiving lens. So you don't have to have optimal conditions. Maybe there is no fog happening, but there is a little tiny cloud passing through one tree on the valley floor. That's all you need. So you don't need to have amazing conditions in your entire scene. All you need is something exciting to happen in a very small area. And you can use this longer lens to isolate it, to focus in it, to remove the distractions. And that's what I mean by a longer focal length is not nearly as condition dependent as a wide angle lens is. Here's a good example of that. This is from Bryce Canyon a couple years ago. There was nothing happening in the sky at all, but just by zooming in to the snow falling in the background, removing the sky, able to pick up this little bit of light, created a very, very beautiful photograph. Once again, another image, no sky at all, just zooming into the things that matter most in this photograph. These are just some beautiful birch trees from Acadia National Park. And once again, in this scenario, no interesting sky whatsoever. But just by zooming in on the beautiful color contrast of the trees and the autumn color in the background here, created what I feel is a very, very compelling photograph. And right here as well, just the base of Yosemite Falls, just zooming all the way into the things that matter most. And real quick, before I do carry on, I just want to say a big thanks to the sponsor of this week's video, which is Professional Photographers of America, or PPA for short. Now, I know I've mentioned this on quite a few occasions over the years, but one of the top reasons why I'm a member of PPA is their straightforward approach to insuring camera gear. They offer up to $15,000 worth of coverage with a $50 deductible for repairs and a $350 deductible for full replacement of equipment loss. This gives me the peace of mind knowing my gear is protected not only from damage, but also theft or any other unforeseen event that may occur. And with a PPA membership, you'll also receive data loss negligence and malpractice protection with PPA's indemnification trust, along with professional development tools designed to help you grow your skills with mentorship programs and even portfolio reviews. So join a community of over 35,000 photographers and check out the link in the description below for an exclusive discount on your PPA membership today. So to carry on, the next amazing aspect of this, and it kind of has to do with the whole not condition dependent thing, is the fact that you can isolate abstract things. And abstract, I think it's a common maybe misconception that abstract, you just have to get really, really close to something, so close to where it kind of confuses the viewer. They don't even know what they're seeing. And sometimes that is the case. But and I got an example here, there are signs or situations where you can take an abstract photo that's very, very far away, but it still has an abstract quality to it. But being able to isolate areas, I think that is the real key to an abstract photograph, is to be able to isolate an area of a scene. This is just some ice from Iceland from quite a few years ago, but just zooming all the way in and just looking at all of these beautiful triangular shapes. This is what really drew me to this scene. I love triangles. The shape triangle is a very powerful shape, and it is very, I think, eye-grabbing. I think it seeks attention almost. It just kind of sticks out. So I saw these and I wanted to zoom all the way in with my long lens just to capture all this beautiful detail and texture in this ice right here. Once again, this is Skogafoss in Iceland as well, zooming all the way in with a very fast shutter speed and just capturing all of this beautiful water. And what's cool about this photograph is that this could be any waterfall in the world. You have no idea what waterfall this is. You also can only see the water falling. You have no idea how big this waterfall is. You have no idea where the top is. You have no idea where the bottom is. And I like that sense of wonder that creates. I like that momentary sense of confusion that creates. And that's all because you're using a telephoto lens. I actually do have a photo of this. If I can find the photo, I'll flash it on the screen here, where I captured this waterfall, in its entire nature, or its entirety. There was nothing happening in the sky once again. Completely bluebird sky, very bland sky. And that's actually why I put on this longer focal length to capture this waterfall. But that's another example of a telephoto lens is not a condition-dependent lens. One more example, and this is what I was talking about, how you don't always have to get extremely close to something, or I should say you don't always have to zoom very far into something. This is a lake in my, a reservoir, honestly, in the town that I live in, just on a very, very foggy morning quite a few years ago. But I love when you look at this, you can't really, I could flip this in any different direction, and you really wouldn't be able to tell which way is up, which way is down. I love the color contrast between the warm tones at the top and the cool tones at the bottom. There's just a lot of different elements at play here that I really, really enjoy. But I wanted to put this in here because to me, this is an abstract photograph, but it's not something it's not like a macro style photograph. I'm not very close. This kind of shore was on the other side of the lake. I just happened to have a long enough lens that enabled me to capture that. Now this last one, this is a very, very important one because I always hear that one of the biggest benefits of a wide angle lens is that you can capture those grand sweeping vistas. And that's one of the drawbacks of a telephoto lens. And I guess there is a little bit of truth to that, but in all honesty, I feel like a telephoto lens can capture way better grand sweeping vistas than a wide angle lens can, because when you capture a huge area, I'd say the widest focal length of your lens, so you have a 16 to 35, you're opened up all the way to 16 millimeters, and you're trying to capture these mountain ranges. A lot of times, yeah, you will capture the entirety of that mountain range, let's say, but those mountains are gonna be so small. They're gonna be squished. It's gonna lose a lot of the drama of the scene. But what I love to do is to put on a longer focal length. And you don't have to zoom all the way in. You can stay zoomed out to say 100 or 70 millimeters. And I love to put my camera in a vertical orientation and create a sweeping pano. That way, and I've got a good example right here, that way you don't get those kind of that pancaking effect of that mountain range. Those mountains are gonna look even more grandiose, even more dramatic because you're zooming into them and you are still able to capture that sweeping vista that you're looking for. And this is a good example from the Lofoten Islands in Norway. This is actually my workshop 2 years ago, but I captured this with a wide angle lens and these mountains were so small, but by putting on a longer focal length, and this is only a 3-shot pano, one over here, one in the middle, and then one right over here on this side, putting it in a vertical orientation and making that sweep across, was able to not only make these mountains not look miniature, but it actually made them look even more impressive and even more dramatic and dynamic. And I absolutely love that. So if you don't use, I should say, if you own a telephoto lens and you don't use it for panos, I would highly encourage you to test that out. It doesn't have to be in a vertical orientation. You can do it in a horizontal orientation and make that sweeping motion, or vertical, it's totally up to you. But it's an amazing toolkit to have in your repertoire of things that you can do. So I hope those 5 techniques are things that will kind of help you next time you are on location and you have a long lens, or maybe you're on the fence as to whether or not you want to buy a telephoto lens. Hopefully this video might encourage you to do it, because I personally find it is by far, if not the most important lens in your bag, it is definitely in the top 2. And it's something that I think every photographer, and especially landscape photographer, should own. So if you have any questions about anything in this week's video, please leave those in the comments section below, and I will do my best to get back in touch with you as soon as humanly possible. And if you, and be sure to check out the link in the description below for that exclusive discount on your PPA membership. And as always, I really do appreciate you carving out a little bit of time to spend it with me here today. If you did enjoy this week's video, if you could, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, and I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.